That would be our next thing, yeah, the adoption of the
So
agenda.
this goes through first, and then we'll talk about the rest of the agenda, or we talk about it now?
No, this is just to add this.
Just to
component.
add this component?
Yep. Correct. Okay, all those in favor of adding curriculum to the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Good, it will be added to the agenda. So next up, Jake, we would talk about the agenda.
Because did we discuss that we need a motion in a second?
Yeah.
So
So,
I move to approve the adoption.
okay.
My discussion is just on, or clarification on the 11C. You know, what are we looking at doing tonight with the coach's contract?
Yes, so we are planning to, we've been working through a procedure that would form a committee to discuss the coaches' contracts as part of Minnesota State High School, the guideline that we either renew or non-renew annually all head coaching positions. This doesn't involve the lower level coaching positions, it's only head.
So we're
coaching.
just looking at creating a committee and
Correct.
talking about moving forward.
Correct.
We're not doing anything with coaches'
Nope.
actions.
No, it is just putting kind of talking through the committee and putting together a draft of what that committee, the expectations are for that committee.
Okay. Sounds good. So I want clarification.
So we have a motion to approve the agenda, we have a second. Any other discussion?
The curriculum is added as an informational item.
All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Recognition. Golden Apple, Jen Taylor.
Jen is here this evening, right, Jen? Would you like to stand and be recognized? Golden Apple winner. I'll just share a quick little bit. Jen was nominated for lots of reasons, part of which it says in the recommendation, the amount of time and dedication Jen spends making her classroom feel like home and creating new and fun ways to learn is remarkable. Every student who enters her classroom is challenged, encouraged, and supported. Jen's ability to meet students' needs, regardless of their abilities, takes a great deal of patience and perseverance. Her classroom gives students the skills they need to be academically successful while being good friends to others. Quite good work. Thank you, Jen.
Okay, we have some governance tonight. We have the audit by Coach Larson Allen.
Craig's with us tonight.
Just here to get everybody wrapped up, right? The exciting part. All right, I'm Craig Copenhagen. I'm the principal on your audit for a few years now in a row, so I'm here to just give you the kind of the cliff notes on the audit results. So if we go to the next slide, we issued a clean opinion on the financial statements. It means we're comfortable that the numbers and everything are measured and reported and disclosed in accordance with accounting principles in all material respects. One finding on internal controls, basically we as the auditors prepared this lovely 110 or so page document that's available for you. It's a really great read, I would highly recommend it. Minnesota legal compliance, I had one finding there on collateral on bank accounts. Basically, for whatever balance you have in your checking and savings account, the bank has to pledge back a certain amount of support or collateral to that balance in the event that, it goes bad or whatever, just to basically protect the district. Was a little bit short on statutory compliance there on the Minnesota statutes. And kind of the main reason is you're actually earning an interest rate on your savings account this year. So what that means is basically the money's in the bank, right? So, that finding, I'll take that one all day long. Moving on, single audit, so federal compliance, we had to do a federal compliance audit again this year. We've had to do that, basically, several years in a row now since the start of COVID. So we audited the ESSER program, basically COVID money, those expenditures in 2023. No findings there, so clean bill of health on federal compliance. We had a new accounting standard to consider for subscription-based information technology. Don't believe there's any impact on that one, but we at least had to think about it during the audit. A couple more things coming up in each of the next 2 years as well. So kind of continue this trend of throwing new stuff at us, as well as your finance department to kind of keep track of each year. Next slide is the general fund, unrestricted and assigned fund balance. Holding pretty steady there. You actually did commit about $350,000 over to severance in 2023. So that number is not included on these bar graphs, but very good, financially healthy, district. So you're doing a great job managing your finances there. Restricted fund balance on the next slide. This is going to be basically the largest components are going to be scholarships and student activities, but as well as classroom restrictions, and that's holding pretty steady here. As well, you did use some of the staff development dollars and the state school dollars as well this year. Operating capital, it can be kind of a recurring theme here, but operating capital, basically you're putting the money to use as it comes in, so that fund balance has been holding pretty steady as well. The next one is long-term facilities maintenance, and here's, you see a decrease in fund balance there. That's kind of normal, because it really depends kind of where you are in your 5-year capital plan. You update that each year on an annual basis with the Minnesota Department of Education. Put some of that money to use this year with building envelope, kind of some expenditures there, climate control, elevator repairs, things of that nature. So that's kind of normal that those types of capital expenditures kind of come in, up and down during the year, whereas the funding for is pretty level from a year-to-year basis. So pretty normal stuff there. Food service balance, had a gain on food service, so end of the year $478,000. Yeah, Tucker's doing a good job, it looks like, managing the food service program, so keeping that solvent. Next one is community service. This one had a little bit of a decrease, so $249,000 at the end of the year. Added basically a teacher and a parent to school readiness, so dipped into that just a little bit. Debt service, nothing out of the ordinary to report here. Basically, you're required under Minnesota statutes to levy at 5% more than what you're going to pay for on the loan banks and interest during the year. So it's very normal to see just a gradual increase here, and that's exactly what's going on. Capital projects fund balance, that project, this was the bond project from the 2028 LTFM bonds. That project has been done for 2 years, so completed, nothing new added in the capital projects fund. General fund revenues, kind of hard to read, but I'll kind of give you the cliff notes here. So total top line general fund revenues were $17.5 million, almost 17.6. The bulk of the funding, 80% of it, is kind of controlled by the state Department of Education. Local property taxes make up about 10.5% of general fund revenues, and then federal sources was just over 5%. That does include about $500,000 of expenditures on, again, those COVID dollars that we talked about a few slides ago. So I would expect that's probably gonna contract then in the 23-24 year. So COVID dollars are gonna be pretty well flushed out after September 30th. General fund expenditures, the next slide, so that one is 17.7, almost 17,750 basically, 17.7 million. Kind of looking at, what are we spending money on? So here, basically compensation makes up most of your general fund expenditures. So about 68% goes to compensation. The next largest component is purchase services at about 22%, and that purchase services does include your contract or your agreement with Hiawatha Valley Education District for special education services. So it makes up kind of a larger portion of the chart relative if you were funding it yourself or staffing it yourself. The next one is looking at the same expenditures, so $17.7 million, kind of where is it being spent? Kind of the functional areas at the bottom, kind of the right-hand side, regular means regular instruction. So that's the bulk of the dollars there, almost 48% goes to regular instruction, about an additional 2% for vocational, or CTE maybe is how you refer to it, 14% for special education, instructional support, and pupil support an additional 14-15%. So in total, you're looking at about 76 cents on the dollar, and the general fund goes basically back to instruction or student support. And that's pretty normal. So anywhere from 75 to sometimes 78% goes back into the classroom, basically. The next slide shows your enrollment, kind of a 5-year trend there, but stable year over year, pretty consistent, honestly, over the last years, even with COVID. So doing a good job maintaining student enrollment, so that's a good thing to see. It helps with certainly helps with the budget. The next slide is general fund revenues, kind of a 5-year comparison. So the dark shaded blue bars are revenues, the lighter blue bars are expenses or expenditures. 2023, kind of the expenses exceeded revenues a little bit, so about, again, kind of that 17.6 compared to $17.7 million number. Here, the excess of expenditures over revenues really had more to do with LTFM than anything else. We spent a good chunk of money on capital and building envelope and things like that. The next few slides, basically we're going to lift some line items right off of your financial statements and divide those by your enrollment numbers that we talked about on a few slides ago. But district and school administration and support, kind of the dark blue bars are the 5-year trend there. The lighter bars off to the right. The lighter blue bar is districts with 1,000 to 2,000 students enrolled. The far right is all districts in the state. Basically, the main thing what this illustrates is you're spending less on administration relative to other districts in the state, to the tune of about $3 million per student. The next slide looks at regular instruction. So this is the largest line item on your budget, about $8.5 million almost for regular classroom instruction. So this would be basically talking K-12 regular classroom instruction. Spending less relative to other districts, but your uptick as well for 2023 includes about $200,000 of COVID money. This slide's a little bit harder to compare to the statewide benchmarks for the simple fact of COVID money, because there was a lot of latitude in kind of where it got spent in the budget. So the comparison to benchmarks probably not as good as it was, before COVID. So that'll start to kind of clear itself out now, in the next couple of years and kind of get back to normal. The last slide I'll talk about is special education instruction. That's the second largest line item on your budget, $2.4 million. What this kind of illustrates is basically the cost benefit to Plainview of being part of the Hiawatha Valley Ed Cooperative. So you're able to share special education costs with other districts who are also part of Hiawatha Valley. So it gives you a benefit of about $700 per student in managing those costs. Compared to if you were trying to staff up and, provide all the faculty yourselves. So that's kind of the comparisons there. Those are the prepared remarks that I have for you. So I will turn the meeting back to you folks. And if there's questions, certainly we can entertain questions, but your meeting.
Any questions? Action item?
Move to approve the audit by Cliff and Marshall.
I'll second. Moved by Stacy, second by Monica. Any conversation, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Greg.
Thank you, Jan, for all your help.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
The next item is a presentation by our K-12 data coaches.
I'll kick off the presentation as the K-3 rep for a data coach. I'm Vanessa Covita, reading interventionist at the K-3. I work with kindergarten and first grade students, along with looking at the data, picking it apart, and seeing what we can do better. We'll start off kind of responsibilities. I work a lot with FastBridge, and FastBridge is a program that we are actually given or bought, purchased through HVED, and we use screening, 3 screening periods a school year, and we measure math, reading, fluency, phonics, those pieces, as well as progress monitoring growth. And past 2 years, maybe even 3 years, we've gotten our teachers to use that as well as progress monitoring to see, the kids come in here and how are they growing, what needs are represented, and how can we take those needs and look at them and develop different strategies or interventions in a classroom to help those kids with needs. I'm also part of collaborative teams. I work really closely with K-1, collaboratively, intervention-wise, pushing to the classroom, servicing their kids, and just in general chatting with them. What kind of interventions are out there, what's going on with the curriculum, what to use in the curriculum, what is not good, those kind of things. As well as identifying those students, and I chatted a little bit about the progress monitoring, and that just means that we monitor every other week all the kids, kindergarten through 3rd grade, and we look at their data and their strengths and weaknesses and what can you improve on. Do they need reading intervention? Are they okay? Do they not need it anymore? Those kind of things. And also collaboration with the parents as well. Also part of the referral team that is called our student support team. We meet every Wednesday morning. Teachers that have students that need a little extra support, they bring them to this team, and then we kind of all collectively gather our ideas and see what interventions or additional things that we can help in servicing them. Go for it. Our strategic plan, we have 2 SMART goals in the K-3 geared towards our reading goal. The first one being that we would like all students, most of our students, to be early childhood screened. So we collect data through the census, and then through the census, if you are the age 3 years and 2 months, then you're eligible to be early childhood screened. We kind of track that data, so at the age of, this is all last year's data, Age 3, we have 88%, age 4, 84%, age 5, 52%. So that's pretty good. And I did take a little deeper look into the age 5. A lot of them were already screened by different districts, and then they moved into our district. So that's why it appears a little bit lower. But we have a great want for kids being screened, and we can get them, and they're great about reaching out and signing up for a time slot, and getting their kiddos screened, which then also helps with our early interventions. If kiddos get flagged or need some kind of support, we can reach out and give the support that they need. So it's been a great thing for us. And I would say, as kindergartners coming into kindergarten, we have pretty high preschool support as well, that they've attended some kind of preschool on the way, which is awesome as well. We screen 2 times a year, September and January, and again, that's based off the census. So, and it did increase, I think, was it 78 last year, and it is up to 82% this year, so we are catching a little more. So, go ahead, Marcia. The next SMART goal that we have is all 3rd graders. We would appreciate them, want them to read at grade level. However, we know that there's obstacles in the way, and that's what we're here to do is, as educators, what can we do to increase that? Last year, we want them to increase 5% over the year. Last year was 52. 62% last year, and I think that is a decrease from the year before. And then I also dug a little bit deeper to see what kiddos we are servicing in that 3rd grade group, and there's a lot of variables in there. So it's actually not surprising, but that's an okay number for that group of kiddos, which is okay. All right, Marcia, you can keep moving on. This is the MCA test scores from last year. Everyone likes to look at the graph on the right-hand side. And I do just want to point out it's very difficult to compare ourselves to other districts like Byron or Pine Island or anything else. A lot of schools are now, sharing the idea that your child does not need to take the MCA. So if we don't do that, but other school districts do that, we really can't compare apples to apples. Socioeconomic status, like if we compare ourselves to Byron, we're 42% just in the K-3 with free or reduced lunch. So again, we're not really comparing ourselves to apples. But if you go on the state website and look at our report card, here it is. So we're at 52%, and the state average is at 47%. And our numbers here on the bottom from last year. So a little bit in decrease, but not drastic. All right. Math scores. And I can say it's the same on the math side as well as the reading side. It's hard to compare. We like to compare, but it is a little bit different because just all those variables are not the same. So math, we are 76, and the state average is 59. But once again, we're above the state average. I think we're doing a phenomenal job. Just going into classrooms and seeing that the work that's being done is wonderful. Kind of just jumping back to the reading portion of it too, looking at that 62%. Again, what can we do better? I know we've had conversations about a reading curriculum, so maybe it's time to adopt something new to spice things up a little bit.
When you're showing last year's numbers on percentages for us, that's
Correct.
the 3rd grade classroom that year.
Correct.
We're not comparing the same thing.
Correct, yes. Yeah. Yep.
You mentioned a new reading program.
Mhm.
Are we doing like full language right now, and we're looking at fonts?
I think there's a dabble in all of it right now.
Okay. Right now there is.
Correct.
But then you-
Yes.
And what you're looking at to change to, or what is that more of?
We have about 3 or 4 that we've kind of dug into a little bit, yes, but I know in the early elementary, K1, phonics would be amazing. K1, 2, 3 would be amazing. The state just came with the READ Act, and I'm pretty sure that the READ Act will involve a phonics-based curriculum, so, yeah, absolutely. I think that is it, that's Matt, so. Any questions before I pass the torch to Matt? It's all you.
All right, I'm Matt Cade, I'm the 7-8 data coach. I work very closely with Phil Strong, typically the board's data coach. We work on all the 4-8 data obviously together. A lot of MCA-based data, because that's again where there's 5 years of MCA testing, math, reading, and then 2 years of science testing as well. So Phil's out on paternity leave, so you get me. In terms of data coach report here, I'm going to go through some STEM forward data first. Again, the same thing that Vanessa was just going through, comparing 21 area schools and state average. I also put in a longitudinal couple slides, just because last year, I know the board kind of requested something like that, like year over year, and we've had that in the past, and I put it back in this year, so you guys can see how we're performing for the past 10 years, really, so our data. We have our buildings goals for the 4-8 buildings. They kind of work closely with the world's best workforce data, our district goals as well. So I'll kind of talk about those in a few slides. And again, just strategies are things that we think are going well or contributing to our success, and things we continue to do to hopefully see some more success. So this first slide is all math assessments from last spring. The far left one is the, I know it's kind of tough to see probably in the back, but it's the average, this first slide, or the first table, here's the average of all the other 4 slides. 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, math proficiency. Again, proficiency, what that means is what percent of our students are meeting or exceeding the standard. So for example, 4th grade math, 80.5% of students were meeting the standard. So again, some good numbers there. In green, in the past, again, a district goal has always been to be in the top 5 of STEM forward schools. So anything in green is us in the top 5. And again, the far left one is the average of all of them. So on average, of all the grades we did, we were in 4th. So very good showing overall. Again, typically frequent flyers in that top 5 are us, Byron, Cassins, and Broda, Pineapple, and Chatfield. We typically are in that group as well. So we have been over year over year. 4th grade and 8th grade, we're in the top 5, so those are in green, and those actually, both of those 2 individuals are in the top 10% of the state in terms of performance. So also in yellow, again, one's just outside the top 5, 5th, 6th, and 7th, also very good showings. And the gray bar there, as you can see, is the state average for each of the levels. So again, all above state average, all good showings in math, very good year in math. Yeah, good.
What were you looking at?
Wait, I'm sorry, moving back. It's a math one.
It is not.
Yeah, okay.
So 4th grade is up to 80.5.
Yes, 80.5% were passing or exceeding the
Yeah.
standard.
So then, do you guys have a way, like when you look at, okay, so then, is it then 5th grade drops?
It's a different class of students. Maybe my longitudinal slide will help with that, okay?
Okay.
So you can kind of see, then it's kind of good to see where classes are performing year over year.
Yes, I'm just wondering, like, is there a curriculum change? Is it, you know, like, there's a lot of factors.
Yes,
A lot of
yes.
factors.
So maybe that. Here again, same thing, but for reading assessments. So the far left one again is how we performed all 4A grades. In reading, again, 4th overall. So again, very good showing there as well. 5th grade reading and 7th grade reading, both in the top 5. 5th grade second, just behind Byron, and 7th grade actually first overall. So again, both the ones in the green, top 10 performance, top 10% of the state of Minnesota. So, and again, all the yellow ones also as well, just outside the top 5, but all above state average. So. The science one, again, just remember there's 2 years. 5th grade and 8th grade are the only different test for science MCAs. So again, averaging both though, again, 4th place overall. 5th grade is 4th themselves individually. And then 8th grade, as you can see, actually was still in the top 1/3 of STEM forward schools, just hovering like 0.5% below state average. Just in general, I got a comment about this coming up here, but state average for that 8th grade test is down 15% from COVID. So I'm not sure exactly if they've changed things, but I don't know exactly, but there's something going on there. So as we look at all 21 schools in the area, everyone kind of struggling with the 8th grade science test. The state struggling with the 8th grade science test, but we still are right about at the state average there, still doing well for our area. So again, that was kind of more just again how we compared other schools around. Here's the longitudinal aspect of these slides again. This first one is again math numbers, so again, this kind of helps to look at something for how grade levels are performing. There's a lot of numbers up here, it's a rainbow of colors, you gotta be sorry, it probably just kind of works for me, but when I put this together. But again, it's talking about proficiencies, okay? So, like, for example, here at fourth grade, this is, the bottom line is all last year, 2023 data. We usually include the third grade one just because we're comparing them and see how students are coming into our grades 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But the big numbers here are the proficiency, again, what percentage of students are passing the test. Next to it is a plus minus, which again is ranking them compared to the state average. So how much compared to the state, are we above or below? Again, you'll see a lot of numbers, either 20%, 10%, or with pretty good numbers compared to the state average here too. Looking at this chart, you can kind of look down the row and see kind of what's going on for a particular class, or how things have been going over year, or you can look at a particular color that follows a class of students. So you can see, are they typically, are they staying around where they usually perform compared to state, compared to proficiencies? That's kind of a couple ways you can look at this particular stuff. That's the math one. And then this is the reading one. We don't have a science one just because again, they go 5th grade, 8th grade, there's kind of 3 years in between, so we just kind of compare the year over the year a little more. Any questions on does that kind of show something? Right. Just kind of a summary of those last 2 slides then, in terms of the longitudinal data, things to pick out. Over the last 10 years of tests that was, we were above state average, just kind of averaging all the places we were in terms of comparing ourselves to the state average. Math is typically 15.5% above the state average for each grade level. Again, probably putting us in the top 15% or 10% in state year after year. Reading average is about 9.5% above state average, again, probably near the top 20% as well. And science, 12.5% in the 2 grade levels we have there. Out of 120 individual tests, only 4 times under state average. Again, that's including the science as well. I went on the slide for the longitudinal showing there for their scores, but I computed all those in there too. So 4 times under state average, it's like a 97% success rate of being above the state average over the past 10 years. And actually 79 times, or almost 2/3 of the time, we're 10% or more above the state average. State averages, kind of like I mentioned a little bit ago, are still down since COVID. In math, about 8 to 15%, reading kind of in a similar range there too. And I mentioned the science one, about 15%. Actually, the last couple of years it's continued to drop for whatever reason that is. So math is rebounding just a little better than reading across the state. Maybe I just always think math is giving math teaching myself kind of a learned skill. It's something you practice and you're back in classroom, you practice that probably more. So maybe that's just a possible reason, but that just kind of makes sense in my mind. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Your math, 4th through 6th grade. Is
4 through 8. This is all 4 through 8.
Right, but they'll break it down to curriculum. The 4th through 6th grade, is that all the same curriculum then?
I'm not teaching the board, but yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, next, district-wide, we have some world's best workforce goals, and that's touching the first. There's 5 of them total. We got for the first 2, goals 4 and 5, that we talked about by high school, by Nate. Goal 3 kind of falls in the middle in terms of what we're doing with all our MCA data, which is closing all racial and economic gaps. Again, trying to close that achievement again between, let's say, free and reduced students versus non-free and reduced. Again, trying to get them achieved near the same level. Standing focus on, there's kind of 3 areas that we target: free and reduced eligible students, minority populations, and special education populations. Again, trying to get them to form near the same proficiency to get the best we can, obviously knowing the challenge to get them back. So we kind of made a goal of trying to decrease our gaps for learning about 2% each year, but I'll talk about that again. There's a lot of variables that go on with that. So, okay. So here's the numbers. And again, kind of a lot of numbers on this particular slide too. In the green here, it talks about free and reduced eligible. Again, the gap there between our students that are non-free and reduced versus our students that are free and reduced. Again, trying to get them to be closer together. Blue is the minority populations, and yellow is the special education. Okay. On the left are numbers for reading, on the right are numbers for math, and this is 2022, and that's 2023, the most recent test. Okay, so again, comparing from one year to the next. The main number to look at here is in yellow here. These are the gaps in terms of where our free and reduced, our non-free and reduced students are performing, and our free and reduced eligible students. Okay. In 2022, again, our reading gap was 11%, and our math gap was almost near 19%. Okay. This past year, 2023, it was 23 and 25, so it looks like the gap's wide. Okay, but hold on a second, because again, it looks bad, but there's a lot of things kind of going on here, we'll talk about in a second. We first mentioned minority gap, it looks like it stayed about the same roughly, okay? But there was movement there out that one too. In special education, again, all guys kind of near 40%, the math one did decrease a little bit. But again, what you gotta look at is, again, both groups can kind of move or shift, okay? So when we look at the gap, obviously that's the idea, is getting all students to perform well. And so some of that number is misleading. So our gap jumped by, going back to the free and reduced eligible students, our gap jumped by about 10% or more. Why did that happen? Well, what happened was our students that are free and reduced eligible actually continued to perform both the same. So they come at, for reading, their proficiency is about 46%, math is about 40. If you look at the 2022 numbers, they're about the same. But our students who are non-free and reduced went up about 10%. So again, it's still good news. We're still seeing students increase their proficiency as we want. Again, our one group kind of helped serve, and then our non-group just kind of, free and reduced eligible just had better performance last year. So that's why the gap decreased. Is that the worst thing in the world? No, students are doing better. So that's still an increase. Well, both groups went up, but at least one did show a big increase. Minority gap again stayed about roughly the same, but what happened is both levels just actually went up about 3 or 5%. Okay, so again, good news there, where the gap stayed the same, but both groups are achieving at a better level this past year. And in terms of special education, same kind of idea, really they stayed roughly about the same, but the math, students in special education for math actually had a 10% increase. So that's why that gap did see some decrease. So when we talk about that goal, it's like we want to decrease the gap by 2% every year. I think more roughly what we're trying to get at, or a better kind of focus, is let's just focus on these groups and try to, again, improve, again, those students that maybe lack resources, struggle with academics, things like that. We're trying to get them to improve year over year. So I just kind of pull out those numbers. And again, if you just look at that, there, you know, our free and reduced students, how did they do from one year to the next? They saw a 3% increase in math. Minority populations actually went up in both reading and math. Special education went up in both categories. So 5 to 6 actually did see an increase. 4 to 6 actually increased 2% or more, again, kind of like we're looking for. So again, look at those groups, good showing by those groups that we're trying to target and help out as much as we can.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Okay, so like the free and reduced. So because of their economic, maybe they don't have parental support, is that kind of where we're?
They're eligible to reduce, to get free and reduced lunches, and I know it's different with the lunch program now too, everybody gets free lunches, but there is still a classification of students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch, yes, it's like a
And that,
poverty level, and there's a state kind of calls it, yes.
and then that would equate, maybe that they don't have as much.
The resources, yep, possibly. To be as successful, that's typically what you're finding, so,
Okay.
and actually I've got a slide coming up on that too. So.
Okay.
Julie, the thing there, again, we have to be careful, because, again, we have wonderful kids.
Oh, absolutely.
There's facts that are proven with your percentage of free and reduced poverty, compared to other schools that have 5%, we have 40. So again, your factual data, you're not supposed to score as well as we're doing. So again, be very careful. We're not saying, okay, they have bad parents, absolutely not. Little kids and stuff, so I'm just saying, but there is data that proves there is a factor with that population.
Okay,
Okay?
thank
Yep.
you for clarifying.
Yep.
Yeah,
It will be interesting to see how, like, in our 4 to 8 population, and maybe Clark can speak to this, when we think about the free and reduced lunch, part of the benefit of them filling out the forms, so that they got free and reduced lunch, so will we see a decline in the number of families that are filling the form out?
And this
Which
is still
will be
based,
our numbers.
yes, and this is based on a percentage right now. Again, having seen the data, there's still only in that category, I guess, we'll see how changes going forward. Good point. So again, this kind of something going forward, we kind of tweak the wording of our goal as opposed to let's decrease the gap. Again, kind of like we talked about, more focusing on let's see if we can help these target groups and with them raised by 2% each year, more like the idea than the gap has a little more variables to work with. So that's our okay. Something else that kind of tied in with that, and it ties in exactly with our conversation right now too. There was a study in the Star Tribune actually that took all middle schools, all high schools, all junior highs across the state of Minnesota, And just as we're talking about students, or schools, I should say, that have a higher amount of free and reduced students, as they call it, the poverty level, a higher amount of their students are free and reduced eligible. Typically, what they see is the more students they have in that population, the lower their MCA scores are, the lower proficiency they have. Okay? They plot at every school. I know it's really hard to see with a bunch of dots here. It's like a scatter plot with a bunch of this 8th grade math stuff here, you guys. Okay? Okay? And this is every middle school in Minnesota, and in math, and they plot it. And as you can see, you have students that have a higher level of poverty, where they know the scores are decreasing. They make a line of regression, as they call it, then, which is kind of a line of expectation. This is where you should perform based on where all schools perform across the state. So again, a student, for example, a school with 60% poverty level should be around 40% proficiency. So in the study, though, as they showed, as long as you are 5% above the line, then you are not just in the expectation of where you should be, you are beating the odds. And so looking at our middle school, 4-6 building, in reading, we were beating the odds in terms of where our poverty level is. In math as well, beat that side of the, kind of, the one that's a little more highlighted there. We are beating the odds in terms of math. And I'll go to the next slide, same thing with the junior high reading, beating the odds in terms of where our poverty level is there, and the same thing in math. So, again, it's showing that we're doing the best we can with the students we have and being able to see some measures of success. Last slide here, just again summing up some things that we think are helping contribute to some of these good scores and things we continue to do going forward. We have math and reading support classes in our buildings to try to target and help students that we know need that extra support in both of those areas. We have a reading specialist at the 4-6 to help me target students who need support. We do PLC meetings, obviously, as departments or within grade levels, try to focus on student learning, try to help them with their academics. Our paraprofessional support is phenomenal, amazing. We could clone all of them and we could use more of their time. We could not run our buildings without them. So they're amazing for the students and for the staff. A lot of reports that we actually provide to the teachers too, so they can kind of individualize instruction for the students they have. Again, we use FastBridge and IXL, some kind of technologies to see where students are at now, target weaknesses, and help them see some measures of success academically. And for science, we actually have a new curriculum this year, this SADAS curriculum that we're trying to 4-H, kind of more technology-based. So something that we'll see where that kind of, how that affects us going forward as well. So.
Two more things. Julie asked about that grade to grade. I do think it's fair to compare 4th grade to the 4th graders in the state of Minnesota. I think it's very fair to compare 5th grade reading and math to everybody in our area and the state. It gets tricky when you go from grade to grade, because you'll notice if you look closely, the 3rd and 4th grade state averages are traditionally higher. There is a drop. Our 5th grade reading scores in the state of Minnesota, like ours, is a little higher. Another question you asked me one day, and it's a good question. When your grade level's at, let's say, 56%, how can you feel good about that? Well, like you said, if I'm doing the math right, 44% are not proficient, so that's almost half your kids. But when you see the state average, let's say the state average is at 40, and you're at 56, and you look at the data that Mr. Kate approved with like the poverty line, how you're exceeding, the state of Minnesota does not write a test so 90% of our students can pass it and be proficient at grade level. If that ever happened, the test would change quickly. Like this, the 8th grade science, the state of Minnesota, 27.6 proficient. 3/4 of our 8th graders can't be proficient on the 8th grade science test. There's a reason. That test is something, okay? So again, we do feel good, even sometimes we get 50% or 55% compared to the state, compared to like our free reduced. So yeah, we're proud of the results at the 4-H.
And I would add to that, Matt, when you talk about scatter plot, line of regression, this is 8th grade math?
This is the 8th grade math. So yeah, we're working on it next week or something.
As a reference point of what is on the test, I mean, I don't think many of us would enjoy taking that 8th grade math test. Right? I mean, so just keep that in perspective. The state's not doing that based on your normal average life and what you are doing in math. Right? So just have that as a reference point as well.
May I ask a question? I find it very, very concerning
Nope. We can't ask questions during board
Okay.
presentations. You can make a comment during public comment.
I will, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Matt. Data?
Speaking of cloning, Nate Filesticker is double booked tonight. He's coaching football, so I'm going to be giving this part of the presentation. He does a great job, not only with this data, but also helping our teachers and students throughout the school year. All right, so as we talked about the world's best workforce goals, the two main ones we focus on are the ones I'm going to reference here. The first one is graduation rate. The graduating class of 2023 was 98%. And then if you look at that second point, we had the exact numbers there, and we actually had one additional student finish their graduation requirements during the summer, so that went up to 113 graduates. I think the state average is about 83% graduation rate. Next slide. And so here is schools in our area along with the state average, all the way down. I would also say with our graduation requirements, we, along with the number of schools in the area, we do require more of our kids than the state requirement for graduation. We have a few more credits and classes required for a student to graduate from the year. The next few are MCA data points. You'll see all the schools in our area along with the state average and then our average. I'm colorblind, so you'll have to tell me what those colors are for that. But, so this is our reading right here. This is slightly down from where we were the year before. Obviously different kids, but slightly down. This is our math, which as you can see, we went almost 20 points down from the year before. And this, that seemed to be a trend though in our area for some reason. Below the state average, which is not usual for us or for our area. Next slide. And then this is the science data. This relatively new at the high school, only a couple years now that we've been given this. A couple quick notes about MCA tests at the high school. One thing that we've looked into is trying to find a way to make sure that kids, our student population, take this seriously. One difficulty with that, what we've done for quite a while now, is we give these tests during the school day. That ends up meaning that we split it up multiple days of the week, and then if the kid misses school, we're trying to find them and get them to finish the test maybe later in that week or the next week, and it at times tends to, make it a more difficult process. One thing we've talked about is potentially having a testing day, so where we focus only on getting these tests in. The science is slightly different in that there's two parts to this, and each will take about 40 minutes, which fits nicely into 2 days. The other ones are a little bit different. So that's one way we've looked at this. I would also say at the high school we view these as one data point on many of the things we look at, as we'll see on the next set of slides here. So the next goal is making sure that our students graduate being future ready, which is either meeting benchmarks for being career or college ready. I talked about this at a board meeting maybe 2 years ago where we joined a cohort evaluating how we can use this redefining ready format. That's kind of a nationwide initiative. So last year we had 94%, almost 95% of our kids either college, meet benchmarks for either college or career or both. All of this is a whole lot of writing here, and I will be explaining at this little couple of infographs coming up here. Next slide. So again, this is the first one. Almost 95% of our kids met the indicators for college or career readiness. These are the career pathways, so all kids at the high school, they choose a pathway that they believe they're interested in. That determines a little bit with what classes they might choose, what programs they might go into, other additional things with their own program. So this is held back 2023 class laid out. And then these are the benchmarks for the college over here, and then the career-ready indicators. So as an example, if you are college-ready, as determined by research, that means you have a higher than a 2.8 GPA, which that was 69% of our kids, and then one of the following indicators as well. Either completed Algebra 2 with a C or better in a course for college credit, or standardized testing metrics, which would mean you need to meet all of the benchmarks for MCAs or the ACT for college entrance. One thing I'd like to point out here is that this 57.9%, that's 57.9% of the graduating class got a C or better in a college course at some point in their time at PE. Then the career-ready indicators, attendance above 90% for 9th grade. Service, so if you completed 25 hours of service in your time as a high school student, completed workplace learning experience, completed a certification course, dual credit pathway course, or participated in 2 or at least 2 co-curricular activities. These two numbers, the 6.1, those seem low, but I would make sure to note that those are pretty unique programs that we offer, so that's not necessarily intended for everyone to take. Those are specific courses that kids take either with us or through an outside organization that gives them specific certification. As an example, we work with Arts CTC to get students potentially a welding certificate. There's not a lot of kids that know for sure that's what they want to do right in high school, but we have that pathway. So those are really amazing things that we offer within those 6.1% there. What questions do you have?
Mike, can you explain to the board, so they have a reference point as to why choose completion of Algebra 2 as an example, as a criteria, or why choose an ACT score of 22 to designate whether they're college ready or not?
Sure. So and Trish can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the testing benchmarks right here are specific to what colleges in our area expect. So that's where those numbers came from.
Yep, so the ACT, those are national indicators, and we didn't make them up, this is a national initiative, research-based, everything. And then, but the MCA ones, those are local to your colleges, that's their standard, so that's why we adopted that.
And then, like she said, the rest of these are this is, the Redefined Ready program is a nationally, not accredited necessarily, but I believe the Superintendent Association started that 5-6 years ago, and have worked through the research that shows that if students are doing these things, they are likely college ready or likely career ready. One of the things that we've really discussed in our cohort and as a school is the reality that these things really do go hand in hand. Like no matter what our kids end up doing after this, we're trying to get them prepared for whatever that is. And even if they do end up going to college, they're probably going to have a career as well someday. And so really all these things go hand in hand. And these statistics right now are really what's guiding what we're talking about in terms of how can we improve in certain areas, what can we look at, what can we focus on to get our kids these types of experiences and learning while they're at PE.
And then just one more thing to add with, so the initiative is called Career College Readiness, but we decided to call it Future Ready because we don't just want to say all of our students have to go to college or have to do this. We decided Future Ready was a better term for our school.
So would it be fair to say, from a parent perspective, if I'm a parent and I'm thinking about my own child, is it fair to say that I should be kind of looking down this list and saying, yep, they've done that, done that, done that?
Yeah, and so we joined this cohort 2 years ago. The first year was really kind of like just learning about it, going through the research as a group, talking about it with our teachers and so forth. This is really just the data that we collected on this class. And now that we have this and we've kind of defined the process of going through that, we're going to make this more part of our practice in terms of when we talk to even our incoming freshmen. So I would say the data is really clear about ninth grade attendance, less so beyond that, but ninth grade attendance is a very clear indicator of graduating from high school, post-secondary success, no matter where it is. So those types of things we're really going to start working into, and it's already a part of the senior meetings now that the counseling department has. So we're looking at what we can do in terms of making this more just our common language as we talk about what it means to be a graduate of PEM. Okay, thank you.
We do not have any correspondence. The next agenda item is public comments. And I would like to remind people of some guidelines for public comment. Number one, the comments are to be directed to the board, not to anybody else in the room. Complaints against individual board members or individual employees of the district are not allowed. We also cannot share private data related to students. I will set my timer for 3 minutes, so each person can speak for 3 minutes. So we will welcome public comment at this time. Okay, go ahead, Bill.
I won't get through this in 3 minutes, so I may take off, and Mike will take the other 3. That's okay. My name is Bill Schultz, and I'm representing PEM EA tonight. And I want to preface this letter by stating the issues that are outlined in our letter didn't happen overnight. This just didn't happen, but rather over a decade, perhaps or more. Attention PM Board. The PM Teachers Union has concerns about our school's financial situation we would like to discuss with our local board. Throughout the negotiations process, we have learned that our school is in the bottom 5% of funded school districts in the entire state of Minnesota when it comes to dollars spent per pupil. This number, which was fact-checked by the district office, is derived by taking the total amount of money spent by our school in a given year, divided by our average daily population. Simply put, we're funding our students at one of the worst rates in the entire state. This issue is much bigger than contract negotiations. It goes to the very heart and purpose of our school. Are we here to provide our students with the best education possible, or are we here to save and bank money by spending as little as possible on our students? What is the true mission of PEM schools? On average, the state of Minnesota spends $14,036 per student. At PEM, we spend $10,666 per student, which puts us in the bottom 15 schools out of 331 districts in the state. Our PEM students receive on average $3,370 less, which equates to 75% of the funding of other students in our state receive. The financial support our district provided our special education students was even more abysmal. Our special ed spending was just slightly over half of the state average. Are our community's children simply not worth as much as other children throughout the state? If we look at the data and the way we've been operating, one could come to that conclusion. We as a teaching staff find this to be very shameful and really embarrassing. PEM's general education and special ed programs are being seriously neglected financially in comparison with other schools in Minnesota. Our district's sound financial situation, i.e. our general fund balance, didn't happen by accident without years of purposeful neglect to our students, staff, and communities. Our board members either wanted this outcome or didn't know it was happening. Either is unacceptable. Our students, staff, and communities
That's 3 minutes.
deserve much better from our elected leaders.
As teachers at Penn, the quality of education provided to our students is our top priority. Despite being drastically underfunded for years, teachers have continued to step up and do more with less. The evidence is in our test scores. Our K-12 MCA scores for math, reading, and science are a top 5 in the state of southeastern Minnesota. Our K-12 MCA scores for math, reading, and science are well above the state average and all in the top 20% in the state. All of this has been achieved in classrooms throughout our campus that have been pinched and underfunded by the district. Unfortunately, support staff, administration, and teachers, etc., can only do so much and be stretched so thin. Every single time our district cuts corners on something like lack of assistant principals, curriculum directors, technology, teachers using overloads to save FTEs, or support staff and substitutes, our teachers are asked to do more and more. PM education is near a breaking point, and everyone can see on the inside and feel this. Just look at the number of staff and teachers leaving the district. PM struggles to recruit new staff and substitutes. Our point is simple. It is time that our board makes students' education, or makes student staff and school our primary focus and provides this community with better than bottom 5% funding per pupil. Can you imagine running any business or professional organization successfully with bottom 5 funding? We as teachers have stepped up alone for long enough simply because we want what is best for the students. We want the school board to do the same. In the last election, 4 candidate members promised in writing in the newspaper to advocate and support students, parents, taxpayers, teachers, and staff. We have witnessed members actively advocating and supporting taxpayers, but not much regard for the other parties. At this point, we realize that we need to ask these difficult questions. We need to ask who is going to step forward and advocate for our students, parents, teachers, and staff. PM members did not wish to argue about the facts above. We want to work with the board for betterment of our school. We believe that together we can do great things to make our school a place where students get the best education possible, not just settle for what they can get for the lowest dollar amount. In spite of all this, we are professional staff that will go to great lengths for our students in school. However, if the school board continues down the path of selling out our students' education in the name of fiscal responsibility, we are prepared to go public with this fight. We believe that the public needs to be aware of the neglect of PM schools and the selling out of our students time and time again. Please consider working with the teachers union, not against this group of dedicated educators. We'll be working on the same team, a team that wants the best for our students, our school, and our community. We look forward to hearing from each of you. Our children's education is too important to neglect any longer.
Thank you, Bill and Mike. Any other public comment?
My name is Dawn Sunken, and I am a parent of a PEM student. And me and many other parents would like some type of update in regards to the closed meeting session that took place last Monday in regards to the incidents that happened to students during homecoming. It has been a very long time, and we have heard next to nothing about what's happened. my assumption for my child is that nothing has happened, and the incident that occurred was just fine with this district, and it is extremely disappointing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dawn. Any others?
Yeah, good evening, folks. I want to compliment all you public for being here and allocating and putting high enough in priority list to show up at this meeting. You send a message. Yes, I learned here a week ago Monday about this bullying incident up here in the school district too. Very, very, very disheartening. That kind of activity has been kind of along the lines, various things has been going on, and obviously it ain't been nipped in the butt. It's a very sad situation here. When we got an individual or individuals that are overachieving over and above the underachievers, and what do? They bully them up to bring them down to their level. Folks, that is not what made this country what it used to be. And it's being tolerated. As I understand, there's a bunch of activity been going on in this area here of destruction of people's private property too. I guess what I'm going to say here is the school board, and I encourage you folks to address your law, whether it be the city or the state, and start holding these people accountable. And the parents that are involved, that they got these kids doing out here, doing this kind of activity too. And it don't make no difference what the last name of this kid is, or who their parents are affiliated, or who the parents play a role in our community. They need to be held accountable. The school district has measures of disciplinary action for this kind of activity, and send a message to the people in this area and other people that this is not going to be tolerated, and make a statement known. Now, we just heard about more funding coming into the school district. We got open enrollment and stuff. The people that hear what's going on, that's thinking about open enrolling their kids into this district or moving into this district, there comes some more tax revenue with it. Another source of funding. We're looking at it from that standpoint. Guess what I'm going to say to school board members, elected officials, maybe took an oath of office. You have accountability to the public to see that you follow through, as you said you would do. And yeah, I agree too. And there's one other comment I
That
want
is
to
the
make.
end of your 3 minutes, sir.
Oh,
Yes, we do need your name also, please.
Paul Cocciati, and these are my opinions.
Very good. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Okay, last call for public comment.
I have to go all the way around. I would just like to publicly commend the student council members that planned some incredible activities for homecoming. They were very mature about their planning. They were transparent about the expectations they had of those that were going to participate in the homecoming activities. And unfortunately, they're the ones that experienced the loss of their hard planning. And so again, I just encourage that we recognize the goodness, we support the goodness, and don't have them experience loss because of other activities that happen.
Thank you, Marilyn. Now last call. Oh. Oops.
I guess I'd just like to comment in regard to Marilyn's comment too about transparency. I think There is obviously a lot of emotion, a lot of frustration, a lot of irritation, a lot of feelings going on in our community right now, and I think a lot of that could be possibly brought down or held at bay by a little bit more transparency. And I recognize that we don't name names, and I appreciate that. And I recognize that there are certain things that can't be talked about, and I appreciate that because you're protecting my child too, okay? But I also recognize that a letter could have come out quicker, a little bit more transparency could have taken place. I sent a letter to you guys, I asked a lot of questions, and I haven't received any answers. One of my questions in there was the lockdown policy at school. Our kids were on the lockdown, is that true? On Friday afternoon at school? Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I knew that there were kids that couldn't come and go, and things got a little weird there on Friday afternoon at school of homecoming week. But these are things, I don't want to hear about the Snapchat for my kid ever, okay? I want to hear about it from you right away. I want to hear about the things that take place in our school. I want to hear about it right away. If we want to talk about it as a family, if my kid was involved, I want to talk about it. If my kids' peers were involved and we want to talk about it. This created a lot of open conversation within our family. Things to talk about such as, if you hear something taking place, you say it. This is a conversation that took place with my kindergartner and third grader, as well as my high school kid. So these are some things that we look to you guys as the district to share with us in ways that we can talk to our kids about these things. And things are going to happen. They are kids, right? Nobody's perfect, not me, not you, not any of the students here. But I do think a certain level of transparency is needed in this district, a little more than what we're receiving as parents. And I think that might ease a little bit of frustrations across the board. And maybe help us have some compassion with you guys too, because it's real easy to get angry with all of you and to send you into blast your emails with all this hate mail, right? And there's a certain level of professionalism that needs to take place there, but also a certain level of appreciation for all of you guys, because you're hearing it from the teachers, you're hearing it from the parents, you're hearing it from the students, but none of us are sitting in your position right now either. So A, thank you for doing that, for your willingness to do that, but also thank you for hearing us and doing something about it, right?
Thank you, Amanda. I won't say last call because I think people jump up, but I will say last call. Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to information. We will start with the principal's report. John.
Yeah, submitted the report, so you guys have there. Finally, one thing I want to highlight was our curriculum. I know you guys have that now tonight, but we're getting back into the reading curriculum. We know we looked at it last year. We kind of read it down to a few curriculums now. November 10th, our staff development day, we're going to be looking at more, have presentations. One we've already heard from, but then a couple that day. Just kind of looking at, but we're looking at the READ Act, so we're waiting for I'm assuming about 5 curriculums approved by the state that should be coming out sometime in January. So we're hoping to be a little bit ahead of the game on that and see where we go. So that's it for me.
Okay. Mike? We're skipping order this time.
All right, I have a number of things attached here, a few things I'd just like to highlight. A couple of student trips that I'm excited about, new to our social studies department. 9th grade is going to be going out to the Minnesota Marine Art Museum and the Winona County Historical Society for their world history class. It's going to be offered to all of our 9th graders that can go. And then November 3rd, our 12th grade students in American politics are going to the Minnesota State Capitol. I think that's a really great addition. We kind of hit pause on a lot of field trips, and then we're doing a good job of getting some of them back going here. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be a really good experience for our kids. I shared with the board on the 22nd, and then I sent out to parents a communication regarding some focus on student mental health and trying to create a more positive and compassionate community here. So that's attached. And I would also like to note at the bottom there, As principals, we've discussed ways in which we can improve our overall parent communication, potentially with some events. And right there is kind of what we're thinking about right now in terms of planning for this year and potentially moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Clark.
Yes. Many items attached also, just two things. One, again, as I talked about a lot, the 7th, 8th junior high, we sat down and looked at all the things that 7th and 8th graders can do already this fall. The sports, the play, knowledgeable, math, Lego robotics, all the clubs. And again, like we've said many times, it's simply about getting 7th and 8th graders at that age level to have a group of friends, period. If they feel they belong, they enjoy life, their problems become less, it's simply like that. And I'm spoiled at the junior high. You have to be a rare person to want to teach at the 7th and 8th grade level. And I got a lot of rare people at the 7th and 8th grade building. But they spend hours after school doing clubs, doing the activities, doing Lego robotics. It's just a thing because simply they just put the extra time in trying to get those 7th and 8th graders to feel like they got somebody that they like, they belong to a group. And the last thing, again, way at the bottom, I attached all the curriculum things. We did that last spring. We updated, the main update was obviously the science is new, Elevate Science. 4.8, we tweaked a couple things with resources on the special ed, but that is the updated 4.8 version of the curriculum.
Thanks, Clark. Student report.
Oh, okay. You want me to stand up? Or?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. Lovely to see you guys again. You know, so flattering you all here from me. But I just want to give you guys a quick update on our high school activities, because obviously, you know, some stuff happened. But as I'm sure you're all aware, homecoming did not exactly go as planned. I don't think I need to explain to anybody the chaotic week that was, but I can say even though it was a rough week for many, it wasn't without its shining moments. And not to brag, but I think the student council was definitely a part of that. We worked tirelessly to create some fantastic events for our community, and even though not all of them were able to take place, the ones that did were no doubt a success. We had our family fun night in Elgin, and we had over 500 people in attendance, which is crazy. It was amazing. I was so happy. And it was a great time for everyone that came. We also were able to have a homecoming dance, which was very well attended and very well received. So all in all, very successful, and I couldn't be prouder of my student council. One last thing I'd like to say to all of you is that we do really have some amazing kids in our school system. And you know, sometimes mistakes are made and no one is proud of what happened during homecoming. Like, nobody. Kids were really mad too. But we are kids and we are learning just like everybody else. So going forward, we don't want to focus on the past. Instead, we're all focusing on creating an environment in our school that is positive and supportive and truly represents the kind of kids that we are. Because, you know, we are some great bulldogs in our school, so some really great kids. And, you know, something my mom always says to me is, you can't fix the negative with more negative. At some point, you got to start being positive. So I'm really excited to move forward with that in mind. And we got some really exciting things planned, and I just want to thank you guys for supporting us. So.
Thank you, Jamie, and I just want to note just what a breath of fresh air Jamie is coming to the board meetings and updating us. I think as board members, we also may have had a rough couple of weeks, and Roger told me the one thing he kept thinking about was Jamie coming to the board meeting in September, talking about all the exciting events. So it's just a constant reminder of why we're doing what we're doing. But it's not about us, it's about you guys. And that community event was amazing. So thank you. Okay, we have a maintenance report attached. Any questions about that? Okay. I don't know that we need to necessarily bring each of them up. I think we can walk through them. Community ed report is also attached. Any questions that people have about that? Monthly budget reports. I know Jan always has some words of wisdom for us.
So we're gonna let the audit report stand for our regular budget report for the month, but I did want to bring the updated levy to you guys, since we weren't able to see this last month when we asked you to, by state statute, you have to approve a preliminary levy by September 30th.
And unfortunately, the state did not get those corrected numbers to us until September 12th. So thank you for going with the maximum. We don't need action on this tonight. I just want to show you where it's at. This is most up to date. I don't expect a lot of changes. But the bottom line, if you look here in the middle, we did review this with our finance committee also. What that's showing you, and these numbers are as accurate as they can be at this point. They might tweak them a little bit in the next couple months. We'll come back and ask you for final approval in December. That's by state statute also. But what you're seeing there is the bottom line. Our levy has increased 1.14%. That's the bottom line. In the middle there, where you're seeing that community ed and that 31%, that is due to the school-age child care levy that was put into place. That's up to you guys to approve. You know, this is part, as of right now, that's approved as part of the preliminary. If we need more discussion, we can, but bottom line, you can see even with that 31% increase on community ed, the bottom line overall levy is 1.14%. So just wanted to review that with you tonight so you can see some real numbers that we didn't have available last month. And I can take any questions on that, or take any questions. Do you have any questions for the audit? Otherwise, I'm going to let that one stand for a report for tonight.
Very good. And superintendent's report.
Pull up the enrollment numbers. And again, you can see we organized this in the far left column. It tells you what we ended up the year, and then column B, I believe, is a budget column, and then we updated each month. So ultimately, we try to be conservative with our budget number, and historically, it's about 10 students less than what we ended the year with. We went a little more conservative. We went beyond that part in our budget setting at 1452. So we were 16 less than where we ended the year. I know some folks had asked some questions about why be so conservative, but I always feel better that way. And this time I actually am glad to be in that boat because we're actually below what our budgeted amount is. So our revenues will be less this year simply based on enrollment being less than what we budgeted. And obviously, typically, the trend is that over the course of the year, your enrollment goes down. Typically, we start the year with more students than we end the year. So that will be part of what we'll have to make in terms of the budget adjustment when we revise our budget. The other thing I want to just draw your attention to is, and we shared this in the finance committee as well, but when you look at 12th grade, 114 students, 11th grade, 109, 10th grade, 127, 9th grade, 112. If you scroll up and look at kindergarten, first grade, second grade, you see the number difference, 98, 103, 100. So I don't believe that's something the district's experienced in the past as much as you are going to now going forward. So there's going to be some declining enrollment going. You saw in the audit report where your enrollment's been stable, which is a great plus. Many districts would love to have that. They've been fighting declining enrollment for a long time. So that's going to impact your revenues going forward. Right? So I just need you to be aware of that because that is going to be something that you're going to see down the road in a few years. You're going to see that impact. So it's going to be something you're going to have to be aware of and then in your mind start to work on a plan of like, what's that going to mean for us? So I just want you to have that in terms of thinking forward and looking long term. So that's enrollment report. And the only other item that I will add this evening, and I really appreciate your comments. I specifically sought Jamie out when I got back to the district after homecoming because I really felt bad for the students. We all did. We all felt bad for students. And so that's the part, and I appreciate the perspective, and I think there's a lot of wisdom shared in her comments. So really appreciate that and want you to know we do support you. I'll leave it at that.
Very good. Committee reports. We have several that are attached. HVED is attached. Any specific updates that we should be aware of? Okay, sounds good. Southeast Service Co-op, nothing to add. Good. Staff developments. Finance, we already talked about. And insurance committee.
I'll just speak to that quickly because we just met at 7 a.m. this morning, so you as a board, probably didn't have much time to even look at these minutes, so I wanted just to make sure of that. So we've gone through the process, and the minutes can explain it, but just so you know, we went out and got bids from a variety of carriers. It was a public process. We followed HITA, Health Information Transparency Act, so that you just know that in reference when we've done that. 2 different ones have risen to the top, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They're at a 0 or a flat increase for the first year, and they're offering a cap of 9.5% the second year. And then United Healthcare provided us, overall, it's a 17% decrease, but it does not have anything attached to the second year. We requested for them to give us something on the second year, like for the cap as a maximum increase, so we'll see whether they will provide that or not. But in a nutshell, those are the biggest pieces that I think should just bring your attention. Again, there's more in the minutes. We will meet as a committee again next Thursday morning at 7 a.m. again.
And Darren, they offer similar plans?
Yes, absolutely. Plans are similar. There are some little differences, you know, when you get into the details, and so the committee will be looking at those.
Your good news on health insurance in comparison to that.
Yes, it's really personal for everyone, so.
Yes. Okay, curriculum.
I just wanted to make the board aware, I greatly appreciate all the curriculum that we've gotten in so far. There's still some that like for Schoology, we have no way of seeing that, Minnesota State standards, high school standards on Schoology. So I don't know what that looks like. But also just to make the board aware that we are breaking policy in 606, because we are to be approving all curriculum. So I'm just making us aware of that, and Ron and I talked, and I think we need to have a few more meetings and kind of figure this, how this is gonna look. Everything to add?
Yeah, also on 603, and I know Jake had mentioned it at the last meeting about this, the district advisory committee. I mean, it's listed in here that we shall, and we don't, so I think we should somehow move forward on that.
Is that kind of tied into with what Mr. Walden was saying with his report at the bottom of the meeting? Those meetings a couple times a year, was that kind of figured in with that advisory committee? Is that kind of what you had in mind?
Yes.
And you have that?
Yep.
Okay. So they're, you know, at least looking into those things and ask for last meeting. So,
I know that one, when the parent advisory committee was meeting, we met monthly. I think, with the principal.
So part of the.
That was different, that's
Mr.
a,
Walden, that was different.
that was different, that's a parent advisory committee, yeah. The one we're talking about goes with, what did you say, Ron?
603.
And that's the one where community members come together and we look at curriculum and we review curriculum.
it's specific to curriculum.
That one
It is, and it
yeah.
has to represent the community that we reside in, like a certain, you know, as far as like minorities and things like that. It has some very specific,
It's
details.
just curriculum in general, or it's certain grade levels you look at?
Curriculum in general.
It's just, yeah. Seems like a long meeting.
It's an advisory board though, it's not looking at each individual curriculum and day-to-day stuff. It's like that as an overall curriculum advisory.
Yes. Yeah, nothing to do.
And I know there's stuff that's going to be done in November on during teacher work days.
I was just gonna say, as part of your staff development report that you saw, you'll see now that all of the curriculum documents that we have and created last year and shared out last year, those will be updated in November. And so that's part of the work to make sure that that starts to become an annual step that's there. So I think there's a lot of progress in along those lines.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I think we'd really like to even just start with a list of the curriculum. And that we haven't had yet.
I think some of it has come though. Like
Some has,
stuff,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, I believe each building has shared out, right? Yeah.
We don't have much at all, we haven't all, almost nothing.
I would say that the struggle with that, so being a teacher here 5 years before being a principal, basically my whole time here, obviously I wasn't attending curriculum meetings, but our directive was to focus on the standards that the state gave us and create our curriculums off of that, focusing on the essential outcomes that were determined by our teams to be the most important. And so that was not an attempt to like hide anything, it was an attempt to make sure we were teaching exactly what we could. I know for me personally, I spent a lot of work on that in the band program, identifying these essential outcomes. How am I getting there? The problem is that moved us away from just taking one textbook and using that.
Yeah, but this list of resources is all, I mean, if you're using resources to teach them, all we want is what resources you use.
Yeah, because you didn't have to list, right, of 9, 12 resources, spreadsheet then?
I think they're talking about the one, so, you know, as an example, like my field, that would be a expansive document of the music library, for instance, in the band world. The science curriculum is built into Schoology, right? So like every lesson is built in, we used the tools we had, and so now it's not as functional to simply pull that off as one document or anything.
What we have, I'll jump in, so what we have is by subject matter, like social studies, right? And here are the resources used, math, resources used. So that's the document that we have that I believe we've shared out, but at any rate, what we are doing is taking that document and on November, having everyone update and verify that. So we have what we collected last year, having folks check, like, are we still using that same resource? And if it needs to be corrected or added, then we're doing that. So I'll make sure that I send that out to you as a board so you have that, so you see what we have from last year. And then in November, when that day is done, staff will have taken care of updating it and changing it, and then you'll get that updated.
So then how do you see things that are in Schoology?
Well, that'll be the list of the resources piece. The
That's
Schoology piece,
different.
yeah, the Schoology piece, I'm not sure how the access to that works. I'm not familiar with Schoology, I'm gonna have to ask. I just don't know Schoology. So, but I'll send out so that you have that, and then that way you get the updated one as well.
Think you got anything else, Ron? Thank you.
Okay. Board rights is also attached. It brings us to our consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Moved by Jay, second by Roger. Any discussion? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Governance. We do not have any personnel. We have donations. Seconds of donation. Marsha, donation. Ready? We've had some awesome donations coming in over the months for the marching band, and we had another one from Millville Valley River Days for the marching band. And so I need a motion to accept.
So moved.
Ron and Julie. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes. Okay. Coach contracts 23-24.
Sure. Well, as I understand, right, from conversations last month when we had this on the agenda, the idea then has resulted in the board choosing or wanting to establish a committee to take a look at what do we have for recommendations for head coaches. So as we did last year, we had resolutions for each committee. And each committee that you have is a standing committee that you identify who's going to be on the committee, the reason that you're having the committee, and what the committee is supposed to do, or right, what their responsibilities are. So I started a draft to get you started on that road, and then it's really your work as a board to say what is it that you want the committee to do and how do you want them to operate, right? So,
So you can see the responsibilities listed here of what this committee would do. It's specific to head coaches, and again, it falls back to the obligation that we have to, within the Minnesota State High School League rules to either renew or non-renew head coaching positions on an annual basis. And that is the directive. So the committee would come up with, they make sure we have the evaluation of the code of ethics for coaches that's found in the 400 bylaws. Also verifying for proper license and coursework related to that. Provide proper notice of non-renewal and an opportunity for coaches to respond as defined by those bylaws. The existence of parent complaints must not be the sole reason for non-renewing a coaching contract, and that is stated in the 400 series of bylaws also. And then work with the school district employees when needed, when working for performance management process within coaches. This would also include the review of the status of current complaints and the outcomes of past complaints, including any corrective action that were taken. And then based on factual findings and documented evidence, provide a recommendation to the school board for consideration or approval. So head coaching contracts would go through this committee. The committee would meet and review all of the information that is provided, and then make a recommendation to the board whether to approve or to renew or non-renew a coach's contract. And then also engage with individual coaches as needed to develop some resolutions when there's conflicts that arise, specifically related to policy 403, and working with administration on this. Also need to decide how often to meet.
So I have a question. Who would be on this committee? Is this like teachers, coaches, administrators?
Yeah, my recommendation is to have school board members and administrators on this committee. Just because that would be who would be making this recommendation.
I just think that seems like school board going below the line where we're supposed to stay above the line. To me, this just seems like work that your athletic director, or if you're gonna put a committee together, I think that would be great. But the school board should be defining what are the expectations, what are those things we want? What's the process that's gonna be followed? But I feel like our administrators should be doing that, and then they bring those recommendations to the board. If we put school board members on this, I feel like we are going below the line where we're not supposed to be, but we should be empowering our administrators and giving them the framework by which these are the expectations. This is the process we're gonna follow. We're gonna make sure we document this, and we're gonna do all of that. But I do feel it's inappropriate to put school board members on this committee. I just feel like that is below the line, and if we're gonna do this, I would like to see, is there a precedent? Are other districts doing this? Is it working? But I just feel like, let's trust our administrators, let's trust our staff to do the right thing. We can set the policy, the construct, but then empower them to administer this.
I appreciate that feedback. I think the issue that has arisen is not, I think we'd like to eventually get to that point, but there have been issues that have risen in the recent weeks that would warrant a committee like this.
I still think it's school board going below the line, and is there precedent? I mean, I'd like to see, are there other school districts that are having school board members do this type of work? I just feel like we're undermining our staff. Any other comments?
Does anybody want to take action?
Again, this was just a draft based on what I had received from input to try to outline what it is. Again, it's a draft, so it needs correction, like E is the same as number 4, right? So when you're gonna meet is whoever's gonna to be there and do those types of things, with what you would like to do. I guess I would say that how it feels to me is it feels like there are some frustrations from historical over a series of years, and being able to say, wait a minute, we want to make sure some of these things happen. And if they're not going to happen, how do we ensure that they actually do happen? And And by that, I mean evaluations completed, documentation, and some real conclusions to say when a complaint comes forward, how do we know that there was something was determined? Whether it was determined to be founded or was it determined to be unfounded? Either way, right? Like that's what I get a sense of where you're at as a board and what you're really looking for is how do we maintain sure this stuff really occurs so that there's a level of knowing that these things are okay and that this has been dealt with in whatever way, right? I mean, that's the sense. So I think it's really a matter of how you feel as a board is most likely to get that accomplished. And what I would say is, you know, you've heard this from me before. I'm not telling you how to vote. I don't ask you to say you vote this way or vote that way. I feel like my job is to make sure I give you good information to make decisions. Share with you information. I will say that right now I don't feel like I have information that I can really share with you so that you would have an ability to make a good decision, an informed decision on all of these, because I think some of those pieces are lacking. And when those pieces are lacking, then that, A, doesn't give you good information to make a decision, and B, it doesn't provide any protection for the individual either. And I think that's really an important piece. It should be something that's fair so that people feel like that they're being respected as professionals and are being dealt with respectfully that way. So,
And there was a lot of conversation, yeah, and there was a lot of conversation that's gone into this. Like, I mean, Darren and I, and have pulled in a couple of other resources. And this really was the kind of the resolution that we came to based on a lot of the information that Darren is talking about.
I like that, and I think having 3 board members on it is a good thing, like you mentioned, based on what we're doing.
Right.
I think that's a good thing. I think it's showing that we're taking some, we're trying to be proactive, think about it, you know, for our students.
Transparency to the community.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this? So I think there's a couple of things we need to do. Number one, we need to feel comfortable with what this document and ensuring that we have the right responsibilities of what the committee would be doing. And then we need to approve this committee and this document, and then decide who would be a part of the committee.
So we need to, you think, I mean, as far as the basis of the document, we can approve it,
Yeah.
knowing that we may have to tweak it.
Just as we did, when the committees met, I mean, this was the first time we've done something like this.
Right.
When we started last year. So when each of the committees met, then they did, this was the foundation of it, and then they added to it. If we're comfortable with that.
Yeah, that would be something that the committee should do on its very first time it meets, is talk through what these things mean, what they're gonna look like, where you want it, how you want it to function and operate. I mean, that's something that everybody needs to be on the same page to be able to work forward in those things. I'll just use as an example. This obviously sets an expectation that an activities director is going to complete an evaluation of head coaches on an annual basis. It says it right there. What it doesn't say, what you might want to have as an expectation, is you might want to make sure that one of the things you're evaluating a head coach on is the head coach complete evaluation of the lower level coaches. Right? Like it's not, doesn't say that, but as a committee, you might want to discuss something like that. Like what is it that you are using as your criteria when you're wanting to evaluate a head coach? What are you expecting of them?
And I think this will include coming up with what that evaluation looks like, the questions that are asked, things like is it important to get feedback from students and from, parents? Not necessarily necessarily to inform on an evaluation, but to really focus on improvement as coaches. How do you improve without feedback from the people that you are directly impacting? Things like that. So there would definitely be some work that would be coming along with this. So we need a motion. The motion would be to approve a coaching, what's it called? Coaches selection.
I just made that up, so you can call it whatever you would like.
My recollection is the only evaluation that the school board is supposed to do is of the superintendent.
We wouldn't be doing the evaluation. We would just be guiding what the evaluation form looks like with the support of the administration. The administration would be doing the evaluation. We would just ensure that, number one, that it is being developed, and number two, that it is being sent out and completed. It allows us to set expectations.
We can, and I agree with that, we absolutely can set expectations, and we should set expectations. I don't think we should be on a committee. I think this goes below the line.
Okay. I think that's your opinion.
I would love to see us set those expectations, set that construct, and then if there's a committee you feel is necessary, have that be within the staff, and then there's a reporting to the board, like we do all of our other functions. They come and they have to say, yes, we did this, and here are the results. We had our data coaches here today. They had data that they were able to show to us.
The expectations are laid out in the coach's handbook.
Good, so they got
And they
it,
haven't been followed.
and they got them.
And so that's where we put this. And so as a board, this was, instead of making decisions based on the decision about whether to renew or non-renew a contract of coaches, as we are expected to do by Minnesota State High School League rules, we don't want to make decisions without having information, so this committee is going to guide that process for us.
So where does this end? We're gonna start doing teachers committees too, and having our board get involved with teachers and evaluating the teachers that we have going on. I don't like it either. I just think, like Monica said, we're going below. It's just not a good look.
So then how do you ensure that this is being done? Because it hasn't been, and I think.
Right, and I think you need to go back to Mr. Flatum's the activities director. Mr. Walton oversees Mr. Flatum, oversees the athletic director, and then our superintendent oversees, the principal. So I think that's how the change should go on it. And I don't know, Stacy, you're right, I don't think things have been done. Right. It's certain things. But I don't know if it warrants the committee, right, on it.
No,
I think holding people accountable is what's.
Hoping we can get away from this. No.
Yeah, eventually,
Right.
we would get away from this, but this helps set the framework for how it will proceed, like what data is going to be included to the board for the recommendations. And a lot of that. Do I feel like we need to do this for teachers? Absolutely not. Because I feel confident that teacher evaluations have been being done. I think we're just in a situation right now where more oversight is needed, from my perspective.
Why can't we have the administrators come forward and show the documentation that these things are being done? Having those report outs to the board, which is our normal practice. They come forward, they have to show if these things are being done. We're setting clear expectations on what needs to be put in place. They need to come and they need to show that it's being done. And we can choose the cadence that we want to see that.
Yeah, and I can say that there has not been consistent completion. Like I can share that with you, that there has not been consistent completion of all the expectations that you would have, and to say that those evaluations are all there and all neat and tidy and so forth. And, so I understand that, and that you have a frustration with that, and it's really, I think, you as a board to try to decide how do you go about doing your accountability piece to it. I mean, that's what I hear in the conversation of where you want on your accountability piece to that? Is your approach more directive, kind of below the line as you referenced, or above the line type of reference? I just know that I would like to be able to provide to you information so you can make good decisions when you have to make those. I want to be able to do that. That's what I try to do all the time. And I know that I want to make sure that we're working and being on the same team. You know, this, like health insurance, like other issues, these types of things carry a lot of impact because they are so personal. And what they mean and how people feel they're treated overall and how that fits in. And I know that, so that is a weighty discussion, and I know that I've tried to give you lots of things to think about over the past month along those lines. And again, I don't know that I can give you any more information because I don't have it to share. If I had it, I would share it.
Well, I like your statement that we're all on the same team, because we are. And that's why I just feel as a governance group, it's just, we expect the chain of command to work. We set these clear expectations. We can ask for reports showing that it's been done versus us micromanaging and going below the line, especially on something like coaching.
This is how we become part of the team though, and this is how we help the administration, and this is something that actually, it was an idea that came about from Darren, honestly, and how can we work together on this and be on the same team to make sure that we are making informed decisions about renewing coaching contracts. So I think we can all, yeah, I mean, everybody brings a different opinion to the board and perspective, and I think that's great. Any other conversation? Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say that I think it was really wise not to go and vote on individual people tonight. I think that was a wise choice, and I appreciate a thought, at least, to what's above the line, below the line. I know, like I said, my intent and what I try to do in my role, and so if this is something that's going to help so that you feel the accountability piece is there, right, that expectations are being met, then so be it. Then it needs to be that we need to honestly sit down and go through this type of stuff, and this is lengthy stuff, right? There's going to be a lot to dig into those types of things. We take a look at what's your current form look like? Is it proper in what it covers? Is it not? The application and the process, how does that work? I mean, if that's truly the part that you feel like you need to get into so that you can feel assured to that, then that's going to take time and effort. If that's the priority that you have, then that's what we will work on.
Well, I move that we approve the coaches selection resolutions.
We have a motion by Stacy, second by Roger. Any further discussion?
So how many people do you want?
Oh.
Let's make sure we get as much of that part done as we can.
Okay. So discussion. I would like to see, in my personal opinion, 3 board members and 2 administrators on this committee. I don't know if others have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, I don't think we need to overload it with either. Right. We need to have a decent position.
Yeah.
All volunteers be on it.
What about board members who in the past have made complaints about coaches being not qualified or disqualified from serving on this committee?
I think that's fair.
Absolutely.
So you all didn't have to help me or not, because I won't have the history with me necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a motion to approve this committee. We've got some pieces in place. The recommendation by several members is 3 board members, 2 administrators. Stacy is volunteered to be on this committee. Any other information? And we can work on who's on the committee also. We probably should, since who is on this committee. So we need
I'm already at 2 weeks.
2 more board members.
I could try it.
Agree?
Do you have any interest in doing on it? Just as a, I mean, to help outline the guidelines, and you've been a coach, and
They don't even like the resolution.
I know, we haven't even approved.
We haven't
We're
approved
putting
the,
full on a committee that has been approved.
I guess we should see what's approved first to see who we want on.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve this selection, or head coaching selection committee. We've had plenty of time for comment, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Opposed? Okay. Roll call.
Julie LeBear,
Aye. Yes?
Monica,
No?
Jake,
No.
Roger,
yes.
Julie Hart,
Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Ron,
Motion passes. Now discuss committee members. And it sounds like
Depending on when they are, I mean,
Ron and
I
Stacy.
struggle for mornings.
Yeah. Julie? Okay. Okay. Resolution accepting board supporting form in application to Minnesota State High School Foundation. Oh. Okay. No, yeah, okay. Administrators that are on this. Any thoughts from you?
Director on it too, or no?
The athletic director would be putting together all the documentation.
All the stuff for it.
All the stuff for it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think, obviously, like, too high of a cost, which is really,
I agree with that.
that's what I would prefer.
Okay. Any board members have other thoughts on that? Okay.
so who is also, so we were here at the PD gallery, but
Mike
for the
Wal-
administrators, did you
Mike
choose?
Walton and
Okay.
Darren.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now resolution of governing board supporting Form A with all those words. And that's action item. Is this you, are you providing information on this?
So this is an application that we've done in the past for the high school league. It's just going to be an application there for the foundation. Hoping to get a grant from the foundation of the high school league.
Okay. So what motion do we need for this?
So here we'll vote if this is a resolution. And just, we approve it or not.
Okay.
I move to approve.
I'll second. Moved by Jake, second by Monica. Is that two roll call? Okay.
Okay. Jake,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Julie Hart,
Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Julie LeBear,
Yes.
Monica,
Yes. Volunteer.
The principal's office.
Don't worry, nobody noticed.
Volunteer coaches listed here. It's a one-on-one ratio. We have a motion from Ron, second by Roger. Any conversation about this? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very good. Snow removal bids.
Well, we got one. We got one. I would recommend you accept the one we have.
Does it say the name on it? I assume it's, yeah.
It is, yeah.
I didn't see the name, I didn't see the name or anything.
Is it Edge now, is it?
Yeah, right, yeah. I assume this is Jack.
Julie, are you making a
I
motion?
am, yeah.
Motion to accept this
I'll
bid,
second.
second by Ron. Any conversation? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Seniority list.
Annual item that you do each year to establish a seniority list.
I remember the day Dave Beasley started.
This is been sent out so everyone had a chance to take a look and make any modifications or updations or corrections that needed to be done individually.
Move to approve the seniority list.
Motion by Jake, second by Julie Hart. Any conversation? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very good. Board comments. Okay. No board comments. Last item on the